Welcome to My Life, Tanya Applied with Rabbi Simon Jacobson, a journey into the deepest teachings of Torah and their application to our personal, emotional, and psychological lives.
A good tavach, a good week. We continue our journey in the life-changing Sefer Tanya. This program is made possible by Arena Lights LLC and is dedicated by Lisa Hawkins in honor of Hershey Leib Rosen's 100th birthday. It's also in honor of all the holy soldiers standing on the front line, sacrificing their lives to protect our brothers and sisters in the Holy Land in Eretz Yisrael. May they be protected, may all the hostages be released, and may this war come to a complete end with Shalom al Yisrael, complete peace. Let us march into the Geula HaMitiz V'Ashlema. So we finished chapter 19 in Tanya, and we're up to chapter 20. That's what we're up to. So, as we discussed, chapter 18 began a new section in Tanya that after explaining how we achieve love of God and Korevei Lecha Dover Me'id, that godliness and Torah Mitzvos is relevant to each one of us through Aveda, which means through our contemplation, that in turn awakens emotions, and the different levels of that. The Alter Rebbe came to address, what about those that don't have that capacity to contemplate? And he tells us that each of us also has dormant love. Not just the love that we create through our Aveda, through contemplation, the Ava Mesuteres, that's the Yerushalayim Aveseinu. It's natural to us, it's in our DNA. And where do you see it? Even by Eden that don't have the capacity to contemplate, even by Kalshe Bekalim and Pesha Yisrael, people who have sinned, we see it when there's a test and a soyin, where they're put and they're pushed and challenged. They will in general, with rare exceptions, they will sacrifice their lives rather than do anything that would defy their relationship with God. As he explained at length how that works, because it's something that's inherent to them. When a person feels that type of threat, it brings out that dormant love that's within them. And therefore, Korevei Lecha Dover Me'id, even to every Yid, even someone who doesn't contemplate because he has that natural love. And he explained it at length in chapter 18 and 19, where it comes from Chochmah Shebenefesh, that manifests within it the divine, infinite. Again, the Nisayon, the test, the challenge is what brings it out. But something remains unexplained. Okay, that explains Korevei Lecha Dover Me'id in a time of challenge, a time of crisis. But Korevei Lecha Dover Me'id means all the time, not just in a particular time. And how do you explain that? What happens when they're not tested? What happens when they're not challenged? How can we say that it's Korevei Lecha Dover Me'id within reach in a regular everyday setting of a person's life? So the next 6 chapters are going to come to answer that. Chapters 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. And briefly, what the Alter Rebbe is going to teach us, something amazing, awesome. That in truth, when a person thinks about it, every act that they do that follows the laws of the Torah is revealing the very divine unity of God in existence. And every leisase, everything that Torah tells us not to do, is a transgression not just against God's will, against the divine unity within existence. So in essence, that which we learned about that Achdus Hashem that is brought out in every Yid in a time of challenge, the truth is it's there in every mitzvah, and in every mitzvah's leisase, mitzvah and every mitzvah's leisase. But this requires an explanation. So in a time of challenge, then obviously it's an obvious thing. Think of it this way. If God forbid your life is in danger, or the life of your loved ones, then you'll do whatever it takes to protect yourself and your loved ones. Fire is burning, God forbid. I'm using a negative example, but you'll do whatever it takes. But who says that you'll do whatever it takes in a regular day where there's no danger? However, when you understand that every mitzvah, positive, and every negative mitzvah, is also what's at stake is life and death. If you really think about it, then everything becomes something that you're ready to do, and karev elecha dover meid, the kiyum of kol ha-mitzvahs. Like he said back in the beginning of chapter 18, what was the expression there he said? We spoke about karev elecha dover meid. So he said the lashon is lishme, karev meid lishme relasses kol mitzvahs hatera. He said at the beginning of chapter 18. Kol mitzvahs hatera. Not just when there's a Mesiras Nefesh situation where you're being challenged, whether are you going to sacrifice your life? As they explained, that for sure will bring out the dormant love that every Jew has to Hashem. But in truth, every mitzvah, and therefore everything that's the opposite of a mitzvah, the opposite of mitzvahs, is equally a life and death situation, because it's all about expressing the divine unity in existence. That's what he's going to come to explain. So we're really going to go into now a whole deeper metaphysical understanding of the divine unity and our relationship with God. Not just when there's a threat to it, but in truth, every time, everything is a threat. Because godly unity is all pervasive. And if we're not connected to it, bottom line is we're disconnected. And we're disconnected from our very oxygen. And that's something that a person will fight for when they understand that. And that's what karev elecha dover meid all the time. Not just when there's an actual immediate challenge where an enemy says, if you don't bow down to this idol, I'll kill you, and the Jew will allow himself to be killed. But the truth is that everything you're doing, you're drawing down and manifesting divine unity in this world. Which is a very powerful concept, because many people think, okay, when it comes to a real Yarek Val Yaver situation, meaning something the Torah says, die before you transgress, like murder, sexual incest, sexual inappropriate behavior, Gilead Arayis, or Aveda Zara, idolatry. Okay, but the regular things we know that other mitzvahs are not Yarek Val Yaver. So I have my own life. And it's true, you do. And Yarek Val Yaver is not another mitzvah. If a life is threatened, when it comes to other things, you have to actually save a life. You eat something non-kosher, even on Yom Kippur, to save a life. Because part of what Hashem wants is that that you should live by it. But if you really think about it, that doesn't mean that there's no godliness within you every second. And it's only when it comes to those more serious transgressions, that's where you realize that God is everywhere. But God is everywhere. And every mitzvah, and that's your mitzvah lesis, has an element that if you don't do the mitzvah, or God forbid you transgress, you're actually doing exactly the same thing like Aveda Zarah. And when you do a mitzvah, it's exactly like Neichi Hashem Elokecha. That's what he's going to come to explain now. So let's learn it inside, slowly, piece by piece. So the Alter Rebbe now says, "V'hine meida zeis lakel." Now this thing is known to all, to everybody. Why does he say lakel? It's known to all because remember, karev elecha dover meid elecha, to every person. So what he's going to explain now is also relevant to every person. Because you could argue, you know what, a person maybe not on this level of understanding Achdus Hashem everywhere. He says, no, this is Meidas Zeis Lakel. That what? Ki mitzvahs v'hazhoras aveda zara. That the mitzvah, and it's a double mitzvah, the mitzvah to accept one God, and the prohibition against idolatry, Shem Shnei Dibros Harishenim. The Alter Rebbe doesn't say the mitzvah of accepting God. He just says both mitzvah Hazaras Avodah Zarah, Shem Shnei Dibros Harishenim. That's essentially the content of the first two commandments, which are Anochi v'lo Lecha. The mitzvah of the Haimim b'Hashem, to believe in God, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, as the Rambam says, is the mitzvah Sefer HaMitzvahs. That's the mitzvah to believe in God. And Lo Lecha, the second commandment, is the prohibition: you shall not have other gods. Lo Lecha Elokim Acherim. So this mitzvah and Hazara v'Avodah Zarah in the first two dibris, the positive, to believe in one God, and the opposite is antithesis, that not to have any other gods, and we'll soon discuss what that means. Hem klolos kol ha'Torah kula. That's what's meidar zeis l'keil. In other words, it's the entire Torah. It's not just two mitzvahs out of 613. All the mitzvahs are essentially subsets of that principle, that to bring godly unity into this world, and not the opposite of bringing any other forces as a power. There's only one God. That's the yesod, because klolos kol ha'Torah kula. It encompasses the whole Torah. And Alter Rebbe continues to explain why. Ki diber anechi kol ramach mitzvah. So he breaks it down now in more detail. Because the dibur of Anochi Hashem Elokecha, encompasses all the 248 positive mitzvahs. V'lo yilcha kol shasha mitzvahs leisaseh. And the Hazara, the prohibition, that you shall not have any other gods. Le'yilecha encompasses all the 365 prohibitions. This is from the Zohar Chelik Beis, Tzadik Aleph, 91a. So what is Alter Rebbe doing here? He's laying the foundation to explain that it's not just in a situation where your faith is threatened. Like we said, at the time of Nisayon, that brings out Mesilas Nefesh, that in truth, all mitzvahs are included in the first two dibros. All positive mitzvahs in Anochi and all the negative ones in Lo Yelecha. And now he's going to explain what that means. Ulechein, and this comes to explain, Shamaynu Anochi v'Lo Yelecha levad mepi hagvura. And that is why we heard only the first two commandments, mepi hagvura, directly from the mouth of God. Kamayim Razal, mipnei shem klolos ha'Torah kula. As our sages, of blessed memory, taught, because these two commandments encompass the whole Torah. So in other words, it's a whole new take on all the mitzvahs. The mitzvahs are not just God says, do this so you'll be refined, or even if you don't have a reason, this is what God wants. It's all an extension and all an expression, in essence, of affirming divine unity in this world and rejecting anything that is besides God. That's what all the mitzvahs come to do. And therefore, when a person understands that, so anything, that's kol Torah mitzvahs, anything, he will then reveal his dormant love, just as when he's in a state of danger, when there's a threat. That's ultimately what the Alter Rebbe is going to teach us. So bottom line is, the first thing to understand now is a whole take on Torah and mitzvahs in a new way. Based on this Mamar Chazal, that it's all included in Anochi and Lo Yelecha. So I used an example before when we're running from a fire. So if someone were to say to you that if this and this beam in your house is weak, and if it falls in, the whole house could fall in, obviously you'll do something immediately. But if someone says to you, you have one scratch somewhere, or one crack in the wall, and you'll say to yourself, is it really the whole structure dependent on it? Not necessarily. So you may procrastinate. Maybe you want to fix it anyway for cosmetic reasons. But it doesn't have the same sense of urgency. So you can say the mitzvahs that really challenge my relationship with God, that's where I'm ready to sacrifice myself, because so much is at stake. It's like the foundation of the building. But the other mitzvahs, we talked, remember, Kal Shebekal and Pesha Yisrael, you don't necessarily take the same attitude because you don't see the gravity of the importance of them. God forbid. There's still mitzvahs of Hashem. But when you understand that all mitzvahs are really and essentially like fundamental to the unity of God, in other words, it's not something cosmetic or something arbitrary, that it's all part, the whole building rests on every mitzvah, then your attitude to mitzvahs will be very different. And it will reveal the deep love that we have, the dormant love, the Ava Mesuteres, to fight for those mitzvahs and to avoid anything that is contrary, because you're dealing with the divine unity, the very purpose of our existence. That's what he said. But now we need to understand this. What is this? How do you explain this? Why can't you just say that Anoich Le'yilecha is the foundation of all Torah mitzvahs? But to say that they're like details, that they're all expressions of divine unity, all positive mitzvahs, and all negative mitzvahs are an expression of idolatry, that's a big statement. How do you explain that? So here's where the Alter Rebbe begins a powerful and in-depth explanation, b'ktsara, about what is divine unity. So he says, Tzorech lahasket chila. U'levayit heitiv, rather. How does it go here? Let's see. U'levayit heitiv inyan zeh. I skipped a word. In order to have clarity in this matter, to explain this matter in a good way, laheitiv, tzorech lahasket chila b'ktsara inyan u'muchus achdusei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We need to mention briefly, which he's going to do in the next two chapters, 20 and 21, the concept and the muhus and the essence, the inner personality and ideology of divine unity. Or in the negative would be in the non-duality of the divine, of godliness. Now, why does he say b'ktsara? Because Shai Yichud V'Amunah, the second section in Tanya, that's where he explains it barichas. Like he says, Levayit Heitev there to explain Shma'is Hashem Echad, the Yichudi Yisbarach. But here, he's not coming to understand it only on we'll call it on a cosmic level, but it's negate Avodas Hashem. There it's also negate Avodas Hashem. But here he's bringing it specifically to explain Korav Elecha Dover Ma'id. Not just when there's a threat to it, but all the time. That our very beings, 24/7, need to be permeated with divine consciousness, divine higher consciousness. So now we're going to haskir tchila, b'ktsara, in yemuhus v'achdus shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So he's going to explain the concept, what we say in Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. What is the meaning of Hashem Echad? So usually, people determine it's one God, not many gods. Lo yilecha elokim acherim. There are no other gods. There's only one God. Monotheism. Chassidus comes to explain. The Baal Shem Tov began to explain. The Alter Rebbe here in Tanya, and more at length in Shai Yichud V'Amunah, not just there's one God and not many, but there's one reality. And there's no other reality but God. That means godliness permeates all of existence. And that's critical to understanding the point we want to make here. If, God forbid, you'd say that God doesn't permeate all of existence, so then you could say, good, there's a mitzvah where we have to remember there's one God and we connect to that God. But the fact that godliness is the reality of all of existence, the only reality, then that's what all the mitzvahs positive mitzvahs, and all the negative mitzvahs are coming to demonstrate, coming to respect and honor, and to manifest this unity in every detail of existence. She says, Shenikra, he says, this HaKadosh Baruch Shenikra Yochid u'miyuchad. And that is, to explain what that means, Yochid u'miyuchad. The expression is the one and only one. Yochid u'miyuchad. That God is the one and only one. What does that mean? So you could say literally it means one God and not many, but he says one and the only one, meaning there's only one reality. This is an expression from Medrash, Yochid u'miyuchad. The Medrash is here in Dvarim Rabbah 231, Beis Lamed Aleph. So let's explain what this means. When we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, that means God is one. There you can interpret one. But we know when we say one, it's not negating that there's more, that there's a two, there's a three. Like we say Yom Echad, first day of creation, then there's a Yom Sheni, a second day, a third day. When we say Yochid and Yochid Miyuchad, we're saying there's nothing else. It's not like there's one and then there's two. It negates fundamentally anything but this exclusive one. So that's telling us there's only one reality. That's what the Alter Rebbe is teaching us here. V'chol ma'aminim, he continues, v'chol ma'aminim shehu levadehu, that everyone believes of him, that he is the only one. And we say that in davening in the Yom Nirayim, the high holidays. So what does it mean? It's in the Piyut Eiches Biyad in the Yom Nirayim, in the Musaf of the Days of Awe. So what do you see from that? Hu levadehu. That he alone is unique in that sense. He's the only true reality. U'kumaysha emrim. Hu levadehu, 1 second. Kumaysha haya kodim shenivrei elam mamish. Shayahu levadeh. That hu levadehi, who means that even after existence exists, he is exactly the same as he was before the world was created, when he was alone. Because what does it mean, levadehu? It doesn't just mean that he's unique. It means that he's exactly the way he was when he was all alone. Before existence is exactly like after existence, just like before existence. And he brings a proof. As we say, you were alone before the world was created. You are alone since the world has been created. And we say this every morning in the davening, which is based on Tanya Applied, chapter 21. Pirush, says the Alter Rebbe, what is the meaning of that? Hu mamish b'li shum shinui. That he literally has not changed. As the verse states in Malachi 3:6, I, God, have not changed. So we're seeing here more than just the idea there's one God. But there could be, in addition, there's also a reality called existence. No, we're saying there's only one reality. And that's only the reality of godliness. And he alone. And even after the world is created, God is the only reality. And without any change at all. So from our perspective, yes, of course, the world exists. And there was a time the world didn't exist. Or there was a time there was no time. But from God's perspective, there is no change at all. So the true reality is godliness. So let's discuss this. Just a few more words to explain it, and then we'll continue reading how the Alter Rebbe explains. So we're seeing here something critical. And this is maybe a chiddush to many people. You know, we live in this world, and we know it's not an illusion. God created a real world. It's Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'sa'aretz. So as soon as it's not an illusion, so God gave this world power. Yes, it's godly power, but there is an identity called a human being, my identity. The goal is that our identity should not be selfish, but we should align ourselves to what Hashem wants us to do. And other such expressions. I was created in order to serve God. But that doesn't negate who you are. But the truth is a lot deeper than that. That would be fitting if you had a king or a leader, so you could say he's the leader, but I also exist. My existence is to serve him. And I'm subjugated to him, and I respect him, and I'll do what he asks me to do. But when it comes to the Eibishter, the Alter Rebbe is saying, it's much deeper than that. He is our true reality. The only reason we feel ourselves as independent consciousness is because that's concealed from us. So yes, we exist. But Achdus Hashem is much more than just God is one and not many. That's one reality. In every aspect of our lives. Not just on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, but in a regular mundane afternoon, or mundane time, and every mundane space, is all this godliness that is all pervasive. And it's our job is to reveal that. So you'll say, 1 second, but God did create a world. How could you say it's exactly the same before and after? So now he's going to continue on to explain, because the entire world does not cause any shinui, any effect in God, in God. Because it's all batlu mavutla, it's all completely nullified in his presence. That's what's going to be the next piece, as he explains how we understand that. How can we understand that in creation? And why is this so relevant again? Because once you understand that, then you can come away and say, it's not just when there's a threat to Amunah. Everything is about God's unity, or the opposite, God forbid. And this will continue learning in the next year. So we began chapter 20. We'll stop here. TanyaApplied.com is where you can find this and all previous programs. Everyone have a good tavach, and we should only hear good news.
This has been My Life, Tanya Applied with Rabbi Simon Jacobson. Please join us again next week. Visit ChasidusApplied.com for archived classes and more resources.